I think we're streaming now, guys. Let me know if you can hear me, okay? Chappy here. Welcome. Tuesday night. It's raining. Kind of crappy out. But you know what? It's funny because it doesn't really matter because there's no freaking games on anyway, right? But I'm not going to sit here bellyache. I do want to talk about some fun things. I do want to talk about, strategy. You guys know me. That's what I like to talk about, right? Awesome. Can you hear me, Lenny? So first off, let's take care of a little bit of business. Chappy here. I come to you on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. I'm brought to you via Zoom on LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. You can go to that website and sign in. It's free. I'll tell you, some of the best people around frequent that website, and honestly, the best baseball minds in the business are there. So go and sign in, or don't. You don't have to. You can sign in as a guest. And if you have any questions, I suggest you ask it there. Even if maybe you don't value my opinion, there's the legend, the Lenny Melnick's frequently in there. Andrea Lamont, the Rodeo Ladies, frequently in there. Kevin Hastings, formerly Aloha Fantasy Baseball. I don't know what he is now, is always in there. Arnie Jones, Arnie Fantasy Sports is always in there. So you really do have some of the great baseball minds in this group, and really it's an honor to share this time with you guys. So tonight, I'm going to talk about middle infielders. Last week we spoke about corner infielders. I thought, I always like to start and give a little perspective, a little history, because I'm a history guy. Last weekend I talked about Pujols and how he was, it's really surefire Hall of Famer, first ballot probably. And really, he's not done yet, right? So when looking at the list for middle infielders tonight, I really didn't have anybody jump off the page. One person who did jump off the page, and I'll get to that in a little bit, kind of hit a little bit of a bump in the road a couple years back, so that's lessened his risk, right, or his chances of getting to the Hall. But first, I want to start off the night. I think this is a great quote for life. The great philosopher Socrates said, "Smart people learn from everything and everyone. Average people learn from their experience, and stupid people already have all the answers." What do you guys think of that quote? And I thought this pertained to this, right? Because what's going on right now, we know that with our current situation, baseball might not happen. But what are the smart people doing? What are the average people doing? And what are the stupid people doing? Right. In this particular instance, we're talking about for fantasy sports. We're talking about for fantasy baseball. Smart people are out preparing. They're learning things. They're reading articles. They're researching. The average people are just kind of going by what they know, talking about what they always talk about, and assuming that they're right. And stupid people just know they're right? So Socrates. Yeah, I mean, you say tomato, I say tomato, right, guys? But I thought it was a very fitting quote for what we're going to talk about tonight. Really, again, I do these lists and buckets because I think it really tells a story when you're talking about holistically the approach. The interesting thing about the middle infield tier, when I made my list, I went back and looked at it. The top 8 guys in the category I had as shortstop. And then it went and it flipped like 5 out of the next 6 were second baseman. And then it went back. So it kind of plays well off of itself, where you can really end up, there's a lot of depth. This is probably outside of the outfield, the deepest position to draw from. But I'll tell you, you really want to, again, I said this in preseason, you really want to draw from these top guys as much as you can, because honestly, when you talk about trying to build your team, a lot of your team comes from having good runs and stolen bases. These guys are going to be very good here if you draft wisely. Okay. So what am I talking about? Let's just real quick, let's run down holistically a few of the counting statistics for fantasy baseball. So, for instance, home run leaders. How many home runs do you think? How many players in the middle had 35 or more home runs last year? And I'll double up on this. So, 35 or more home runs out of the middle infield. How many guys at the middle infield position do you think had 20 plus stolen bases? So Andrea says 20, I'm assuming for home run late. Yeah, just the middle. Kevin says 11. Andrea says 8. Guys, there were 6 middle infielders that had 35 plus home runs. What's up, Pat? Thanks for coming, brother. Appreciate you. First, I want to take a second. Got a great chat room going on tonight. Got Lenny in there. Got Malpal in there. Got Andrea in there. King Haps in there. Taco, I saw, was in there earlier. Guest Cal. I'm not even good. MMAG Dinny. I don't know what that is, but preach it, brother or sister. Thank you guys for showing up. If you got questions, let me know as we go through these. 6 players had 35 plus homers from the middle infield position last year. They were Bregman with 41, Torres with 38, Story with 35, Moustakas with 35, Muncy and Escobar with 35. That's it. 35, again, with that juice ball from last year, right? You're thinking like that's not a huge number, but you're talking about 6 players. How many players do you think had 20 plus stolen bases at the middle infield position? Hey, guest Kai. Good seeing you, man. Thanks for joining. So, again, when you look at these positions and when you start trying to break down how you want to attack it, it's very important to get this holistic overview of these guys because it tells you how long you can wait to get that talent. Any guesses? Any guesses on stolen bases? 20 plus in the middle infield. The one spot, and I'm going to come back to it. The one spot where there is a lot of depth at the middle infield position. As a matter of fact, 13 middle infielders had 100 plus runs last year. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? Because what are your shortstop and your second base? They're fast. They're top of the lineup type of guys. They usually are speed guys, so that means they're generating a lot of runs. So that's why when you look at it, there's a big disparity between RBIs and runs. Again, 13 middle infielders scored 100 plus runs. Only 4 middle infielders scored or drove in 100 runs. Only 4. Escobar, Bogarts, Bregman, and LeMahieu. That's it. That's all, guys. No guesses. That's fine. So stolen base leaders for middle infielders last year, 9 players had 20 plus stolen bases in the middle infield. Led by Mondesi and VR had 40 plus. Turner Andrus had 30 plus. And then Wong, Story, Lindor, Santana, and Merrifield. So my point If you're not getting some stolen bases from your middle infielder, you're missing the boat. If you're not getting some runs from your middle infielders, you're missing the boat. That's the point. Home runs you can get elsewhere. RBIs you can get elsewhere. But if you know what you're going up against when you're trying to pick out your middle infielders, it gives you an advantage in preparation. 9 players, 20 plus stolen bases. You'd think it'd be more than 20 stolen bases. Doesn't seem like a whole lot. And on top of that, that's why guys like Mondesi and VR are constantly overdrafted. They're constantly taken higher than they should be because they bring that allure of speed premium. Well, screw that. If you can get a guy like Wong and you can get a guy like Santana later on, does that not trump spending a high pick on a guy like VR or Mondesi? To me, it does. Why not double up on it a little bit later on? And we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth later on, okay? So, again, before we get into the list, 6 guys had 35 plus stolen bases at the middle infield position. 9 guys had 20 plus stolen bases from the middle infield position. 13 guys had 100 plus runs, and only 4 guys had 100 plus RBIs at that position. It kind of sets you up when you're going into this list as to how you want to attack it. That's the only reason I bring it up, and I think it is important. What do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Am I crazy? I know one thing. When I'm talking about these guys, I sure am going to value a guy if he's going to give a few more stolen bases if it's at the sacrifice of a few home runs at this position. So let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about the list. First off, I want to jump in. Again, I wanted to do a little bit of historical perspective. A guy that was a surefire Hall of Famer up to about a couple years ago, got hit with a PED suspension. You know, last week I talked about Pujols. This week I'm talking directly about Robinson Cano. Robinson Cano was a surefire Hall of Famer. He's 4th among active players in runs scored with 1,238. He's got the 3rd most hits behind Cabrera and Pujols. It really is a shame that he got pinched. I'm not saying it as a negative. I'm not saying it as a positive. I'm just saying it as a matter of fact that you know, if they're not letting Bonds, if they're not letting Clemens, if they're not letting guys like that in the Hall of Fame, there ain't a snowball's chance in hell Robinson Cano's getting into the Hall of Fame. As great as he was, he's had a great career. A great career. In his prime, he was an amazing player. He had over 309 times in his 15-year career thus far. And his home run totals have been 25, 27, 28, 29, 33, and 39. So he's shown prodigious power. But he'll never sniff the Hall of Fame because he got caught on the juice. I bring that up because he really is the leader in that category, in the middle infield category for historical purposes. I do kind of want to keep that as a little bit of a I'm a history guy, so, you know, it's fun to talk about that stuff. Next week, I'm going to talk about a player that's really special. I'm going to talk about outfielders. I think you guys could probably venture out and guess who that is. But it's interesting to take a little bit of history, especially now that we have a few minutes to breathe, right? Just to take a little bit of historical perspective and draw some comparisons where we will. Again, 2,570 hits for Cano, 3rd most current players. So let's, one other guy, I'll tell you, and this guy's pertinent. Elvis Andrus is currently sitting 3rd in active players and stolen bases. He has 302. He's chasing D. Gordon, obviously still active, at 330. obviously active. Otherwise, it wouldn't be active players, right? And Rajai Davis at 415. I'll tell you, I'm going to talk about Elvis Andrus a little bit earlier. I think he's a really big value, especially this year. I think he's getting overlooked, and I think that people need to kind of pay attention to that. Maybe draft him around early because of the things that he gives you, right? So what y'all came for, the list. Let's start talking about the middle infielders. And it's funny because I kind of broken it like I always do. For most of you guys have heard me. I break it down into tiers. So traditionally there's a 12-team league. I like to have a 12 player tier, a second 12 player tier, and a third 12 player tier. So in essence, that's your second baseman, your shortstop, and your middle infielder. Usually you don't want to wait to go to 24 to 36 to pick up your last middle infield spot, right? But it's about identifying value. That's the end goal of all of this. But along the way, it really is interesting when you sit down and you start to look at numbers and stats and all this stuff. In a way, they all kind of blend together. The one thing that I noticed when I broke this down, this is such a young position, and it is so talented. So Lindor, 26, Turner, 26, Bregman, 26, Story, 27, Tatis, 21, Bogarts, 27, Baez, 27, Torres, 23, Albies, 23, Altuve, he's the outlier. There's always an outlier, 30. I'm not going to give you the last two. But so there's the first 10. The first 4, you're really talking about the golden childs, right? And they're grouped together pretty closely. Lindor, Turner, Bregman, and Story. Really, it's about your personal flavor. The thing about Lindor, you know, he's top 10 amongst the categories. So your middle infielders, he's top 10 in homers. He's top 10 in stolen bases. He's got 100-plus runs, and is probably the most well-rounded player of all of these guys, in all honesty. 40-30 is not out of the realm of possibility with this guy. 30-20 is probably a floor at this point in his career for the next 4 or 5 years. 284 is probably and Mal Powell, I'm going to get to him. I left the last 2 guys out on this for a reason in this category, okay? We'll get to him in a minute. But first, I really do think, look, you might take Hiura over any of these guys. I disagree with you. Hiura might go as high as 5th on this list, but I don't put him in front of Lindor. I don't put him in front of Turner. I don't put him in front of Bregman, and I don't put him in front of Story. I just don't. Disagree with me if you will. I respect your thought process on him. I think he is as talented as it gets, but he is at least 5th. I don't have a problem putting him 5th. I do have a problem with putting him in front of Story, Bregman, Turner, or Lindor. Those guys are your cream of the crop. Trey Turner is number 2. His ADP is 10.2. The thing about Turner is if you're chasing those elusive stolen bases, he is the guy to take. 35 stolen bases last year, 3rd most among the category. He hit 298, 19 homers, 96 runs for the defending world champions. I love Trey Turner. He's going to hit 3rd. There's just a ton for me to. Okay. You know, so Torres. So you're saying Hiura over Torres? Hiura over Albies? I mean, I think it's a valid argument, guys. I think we're splitting hairs at that point. I really do. Let me get through these guys. I love Trey Turner this year. I think at 10.2, I value him equally as much as Francisco Lindor. That's why I put him above Bregman. That's why I put him above Story. Okay? I just feel like that stolen base premium, the fact that he can give you 25 to 30 homers, he is going to hit close to 300, might dip down to 280. But everything is projectable there. The fact that he's moving down in the lineup in a positive way from first to third is positive in the fact that it'll drive in more runs. It shouldn't affect his stolen bases. So there you have it. Number 2, you have the stolen base guy. At number 3, you have the home run guy and Alex Bregman. The thing I like about Bregman is there's a lot not to like about him this year. There's a lot to like. I think we're focusing a lot on the not to like. The thing I like about Bregman is he is solidified as a shortstop third baseman, which is unique at this position. Really, if you think about it, that frees him up as a shortstop, a third baseman, a corner, and a middle. So you can middle infielder. You can play him in 4 different positions, right? Whereas if he's a second baseman shortstop, you can only play him in 3. So Bregman has a little boost in value. That's why I put him over Story. And that you can play him at third, you can play him at short. You can sneak him in at third, and I mean, he's not still. The negative of Bregman, one of the negatives of Bregman is his stolen base output has gone down. He only stole 5 bases last year. But if you look at it, he's first in home runs, 41, amongst the category, amongst the middle infielders. He's second in runs at 122, and he's third in RBIs at 112. That's pretty damn good. If you think about it, if you really want to, we're all adults here. If you really want to fuck the game up, if you're picking at the turn and you get a chance to take Bregman and Story, I mean, you want to talk about strategy, right? If you're at the turn and Bregman falls to you, which he's going 11.6 right now, everybody's off of him because of the Astros crap, because of, I mean, you name it. Pitch recognition, all that stuff, right? How much of that is fake? How much of that is real? Bregman's real. Say what you will about some of those other guys. Say what you will about Yuli Gurriel. Say what you will about Jose Altuve. This kid's legit. I'm taking an investment in the first round on Alex Bregman if he's there at the turn. So there. Trevor Story's the 4th of this elite category. His ADP is 10. He's actually above the guy. He's below Lindor. That's it. He's the second in this category. And I've been slow to come around on Story. But I got to give credit where credit is due. The thing I like the most about Story is those 23 stolen bases last year. 6th most among the category, but it's enough to be significant. It's enough to be a factor. It's enough to hit the checkpoint of what you're looking for out of this category. I would totally do that, Malpal. And then to your point, I come back around in the 3rd round and get your boy Ira. I mean, it just makes, like, you're cornering the market. These are the guys you want to draw from. There are 2 guys specifically, and you drew one out, Malpal. Credit to you, Castanheira, that are diamonds in the rough that you need to pay attention to. So I got Tatis next, 317. I know Malpal, I'm going to skim over him. I've talked about him before. 317, 22 homers, 61 runs, 53 RBIs, 16 stolen bases, a shortened season last year. He's only 21 years old. I really do like Tatis. I'm not saying that I don't. I'm saying there's better. I feel like at 18.6, he's a touch overvalued. And your boy Hyura comes directly into play here when you're talking about why he's overvalued. I'll get to the other one in a minute. Okay? But Tatis is the clear 5 among these guys. And I'll tell you, he might be 6 because I really value this next guy. The only reason why I like Tatis over this number 6 is the stolen base factor. 16 stolen bases with a potential for more. You have my interest, especially at this category, right? Absolutely. I love your idea of it. Look, I've said this for a month now. These guys right here are your only real true depth at true 5-star talent anywhere in the draft. You just don't get stolen bases and homers like you do at the middle infield, Malpal. You just don't, right? So let's talk about this. This next guy, I think, is a huge value. A huge value. This guy particularly. Number 6 middle infielder, ADP of 33.2. That makes him the beginning of the 3rd round, Xander Bogaerts. He's 27 years old. He's 27 years old. He's 4-star numbers. He doesn't give you a zip in the stolen bases, but I feel like he's undervalued. I feel like plus 300 average, 309 last year, 33 homers. Both of those are 7th amongst middle infielders. 110 runs, 5th. 117 RBIs is 2nd in the category. It's significant. So you're talking about a guy here in Bogaerts that, 1, doesn't kill you in runs, doesn't kill you in stolen bases, but 2, provides value in areas that, although I said this is a deep category, homers and RBIs, it's not really the middle infielder's strong point. So 33 homers and 117 RBIs they're significant. It's worth taking note of. And again, in the 3rd round, depending on how you play it, right? So maybe you don't take Bregman and Story. Maybe you take Bregman or Story, and you take, I don't know, a pitcher, right? Walker Buehler. You could do worse than coming back around and ponying up on Xander Bogaerts in the 3rd round, right? So again, this is why I love this. There is such depth at this position. We're at number 6, and you're talking about a player, again, plus 300 average, 30 homers, 100 runs, 100 RBIs. No brainer. And he's only 27. And he's going to be a bigger part of that offense this year because Mookie's gone. Mookie left because of the emergence of Devers and Bogaerts. That's it. It's about money, ultimately, but it's also about these guys being able to carry the torch. You don't think that the Red Sox would just let their team. They're too prominent of a name to just let themselves go. Bogaerts is an absolute leader of this team this year. Number 7. And this is a guy that's kind of flown under the radar. And I've loved this guy, Javi Baez. Granted, his numbers don't necessarily live up to some of these players above him. But I think he's the next closest thing to being a 5-star player in this group. Albies and Bichette aside. Play my hand. But Javi Baez, again, I feel like it has been battling some injuries. He's not been 100%. He hit 281. He's only 27 years old, guys. His ADP is 31. But 281, 29 homers, 89 runs at 85 RBIs, 11 stolen bases. He's contributing in every category. He's not hurting you anywhere. You're talking about a third-round pick. I feel like all of those numbers. Again, I know this isn't a vacuum, right? All of those numbers could get better. He just needs health. And honestly, Halvey's the kind of guy that if they're in a race, if they're in a situation, he plays better. He needs some competition. He needs some spirit of the moment, reason to play, right? But all of those numbers are comparable as they stand. No, he's not, George. Welcome, by the way. Thank you, George Hubsman, for coming. I appreciate you, brother. Gleyber Torres, the number 8. Yeah, I know, Malpal, you don't agree. That's fine. But that's, again, it accentuates the point. It accentuates the point of how deep we're talking about. I'm not talking about good talent. These are all elite talent. These first 12 players are all elite talents. Win your league type of talents. Gleyber Torres is one of those. He's maybe being drafted over a little bit, 27.6, 278, 38 homers, 96 runs, 90 RBIs, and 5 stolen bases. 38 homers, second amongst the position. 90 RBIs, ninth amongst the position. You're talking about 50 home run potential in that bandbox in New York. No offense to the Yankee fans. You're talking about, I'd say 278's probably a floor for him. I see him becoming a better hitter. The runs and the RBIs, I think they go because the Yankees are hella talented. And again, 23 years old. Number 8, I love him. Second base, shortstop eligible. That's another bonus. He's the first one that I've mentioned. It surprised me. He played at shortstop last year. He wasn't second, third. He was a shortstop. Gleyber's the first player to be second shortstop eligible. Again, Bregman was second shortstop third. So, number 9, our first true second baseman. At Mount Powell, I do like Tim Anderson. I'm going to talk about Tim Anderson. He's not in the top 12. But I do like Tim Anderson. I just feel like when you're drafting, you have to draft for value here. And there is a lot of depth, quality depth at this position. Ozzie Albies, for instance, he's just 23 years old. 37.6 is his ADP. He's 295 with 24 homers, 102 runs, 86 ribs, and 15 stolen bases. He contributes everywhere a middle infielder is supposed to. He gives you power. He gives you RBIs, even though he hits predominantly at the top of the lineup. But again, at 20, I saw this guy play over here for Gwinnett when they were playing the Indians. He's a really good hitter. He's a 300. I mean, he just has an idea when he's up at the plate. He doesn't overextend himself. So the fact that he's hitting 24 homers and staying disciplined at the plate, I really like this ball player. That's the main reason why I have him above Altuve Higuera. Because I really, at 23 years old, I view him in the same air tier, whatever you want to call it, as Higuera. And he's shown he can do it. They're the same age. Higuera and Albies are the same age. Number 10, you have to throw this guy in here. I do still think he's a factor. ADP 32.2. Jose Altuve. I mean, he is 30 years old, but 298, 31 homers, 6 stolen bases. He's shown more in the past with the stolen bases. 89 runs, 74 RBIs. You just, man, the talent is there. You have to think that he is going to get close to his past numbers. But it's funny when we first started talking about this. I remember Altuve was around 8 or 9 ADP. He's fallen that far with this whole. I'll tell you, I'm of the school of thought of the sign stealing scandal with the Astros. It's a part of the game. I mean, yeah, was it bad that they brought electronics? That's what it all boils down to me. Was it bad that they brought electronics into the cheating mechanism? Yes. Does it mean that by identifying that, people are going to quit trying to steal signs? I just don't. I mean, that's been a part of the game for 100 and whatever years. And I've said this from the beginning. It's bad that they use their Apple Watches and all that shit. It's bad that they're beating on drums. But let's be honest. You've heard these Dominican League games. You've heard these, Puerto Rican League games. All you hear is just, I mean, you hear these pounding and all this fucking noise. I mean, you don't think they're telling people shit? I just don't. I see it as one and the same. I'm sorry. I'm going to get off on a tangent there. I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I do think it's going to affect a little bit the statistics of some of these players, but I don't think it's going to be as much as people think, because in essence, if you think about it, it's just like Tom Brady in New England. Cheaters are going to cheat. They're going to figure out other ways to work around that shit. And I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent. It's a part of the game, and it's been a part of the game since it's been invented. So adapt or overcome or lose, right? So I still think Altuve is going to hit above the bar on all of these categories. I think he'll steal more bases because he'll have to use his legs. But again, at 32.2, I think that's a good value, especially considering he was 8 to 12 early on in the draft season. So number 11, Mount Powell. Keston Hiura, 23-year-old second baseman, 49 ADP. I love these next two guys. I put them purposefully in this top tier because I feel like they're tremendous values. What their potential shows you they can be is much higher than 49 and 67 ADPs. I'm going off of Fantasy Pros. If you guys want to cheat the system and go look at who the last guy is. If you know me, you know who it is. Again, higher at 303, 10th most among the corner infielders. 19 homers, 51 RBI, 51 runs. Buffalo Trace, the whiskey of choice tonight. That's my third one, so probably going to be tomorrow's going to be rough. I am still working, guys. I'm still going in every day, so cheers. Cheers to Buffalo Trace. Buffalo Trace is one of my favorite whiskeys. It in Woodford Reserve. If you guys aren't familiar with it, it's smooth. It's got the caramel. It's got the smoke. You really can enjoy it. So cheers, guys. Hope you guys are enjoying something similar. It's my downfall because when I end this show, it's ultimately because I got to break the seal. Kevin, you busted me. You know who it is. And you're absolutely right. We'll get to it. Just bear with me, brother. Bear with me. Let me know if you got to leave because I want to make sure you hear it. Keston Hiura, I mean, we've kind of talked about him. So UC Irvine, Harold Reynolds called him the most advanced back coming out of college. He came up last year, and honestly, he, believe it or not, he outperformed what people thought. Myself, I love this kid. I was a super Hira fan, but he even outperformed what I thought he would do. The area where he outperformed it was the stolen base. He had 9 stolen bases last year, and ultimately a shortened season, right? So you look at it, 303, 19 homers, 51 RBI or 51 runs, and 49 RBIs, and 9 stolen bases. The encouraging thing about Hira is hitting in Miller Park. Miller Park is, I always say, Miller Park is equivalent of Coors Field to me. I've seen, not firsthand, I'd love to go to Miller Park. That's on the short bucket list. I've seen too many instances, being a Cubs fan, being a Pirates fan, of Miller Park just like balls that don't travel elsewhere, travel at Miller Park. And I could see him being a 40-20 guy. If that 9 stolen bases holds true and he improves as he gets a little bit older, I could see him honestly being a 40-20 guy with a 300 plus average. So let's talk about that. I'm not saying that shit lightly. A 40-20 guy with a 300 plus average. Where do you draft him? At 49? And Malpal, I love your point about Tim Anderson. I'm going to get to him. I guess I got to do it quickly because it's 7:40 already. But it's important to make note. Keston Hiura at ADP 49 is criminally low, especially if you're talking about those sort of projections. And I think that's perfectly acceptable in what we're saying there. Honestly, 40 homers and 20 stolen bases out of Hiura, I don't think is a reach. So again, when you're doing these drafts, it helps to prepare. It helps to forward think. Forward thinking can bite you in the arse. Forward thinking can win you a league. Hiura and Bichette are forward thinking that will win you leagues. That's why there's middle infielder ones. That's why they deserve to be in this conversation. And that's why you need to circle them on your draft list if and when we ever get back to this shit of playing real baseball and not stupid ass Stratomatic crap, which I love. I'll never talk about Strat on this. I love it. I encourage everyone to play it who's a diehard fantasy baseball player, but it's fucking nerds rolling dices. If I can't talk about real shit, I'm not going to talk about that stuff. Let's talk about strategy and winning your league, if and when. Bo, friggin' Bichette, those of you that know me know that I've been on Bichette for a good part of 3 years, probably close to 4 years by now. I watched this thing the other night. Last night. It was actually last night. I know what it was. Last night. I was watching this thing, and they were talking about him when he made his major league debut. And, you know, it's Harold Reynolds and it's Mark DeRosa, and I love those guys. Both of those guys are really good. It's on MLB Network. And it was talking about him taking batting practice when he's a 19-year-old, you know, protege prospect. And then it showed him in his rookie debut. And the interesting thing that a couple of things that I noticed about this comp. First off, dude's put on a lot of mass. A lot of mass. He's a man now. He was a boy then. The other thing I noticed about it was when he was in that, I don't know what it was. It's like a tryout. It was like a All-American batting practice, like high school American type shit, right? But I mean, you could see he was relaxed. You could see his relaxed swing. He was getting his hands to the ball. He had a super long extension. getting his back cocked. And then when he came through, you didn't see much in his hips. It was all his shoulders and his arms as he's coming through. Well, when it came to his shit last year and his rookie year coming up, all of that has changed. It's all in his hips now. It's all in his waist and it's all in his torso. This dude, he's filled out. He has the tool set. He has the back quick. The back quickness hasn't changed a bit. Getting his hands on the ball hasn't changed a bit. What has changed is his hips and in all honesty, his starting point. So instead of starting up here, he's starting here, and he's still generating the same amount of power because his hips are so much thicker. He's so much more well-rounded of a hitter. This kid right here, I said this 2 years ago. I'm double, triple, quadrupling down on this now. Is 10 times better than Vladimir Guerrero. Hands down. Hands down. He's a better ball player. He's better lineage. He's smarter. He works harder. I love Bo Bichette. At 67.8, you will never see him that low again. Never. Is that a statement? What do you guys think? Is that a statement? Bo Bichette will be so much better of a ball player than Vladimir Guerrero ever will be. And I haven't even talked about the deciding factor in all this. I think he's going to hit for a better average than Vlad. I think he's going to hit for more homers than Vlad. More homers than Vlad. He'll score more runs. He probably won't drive in as many runs because of where they put him. He'll probably be forced to hit first or third because of necessity. But the other thing about Bichette, 25, 30 stolen base potential. So you're talking about 40, 30, plus 300. Where do you draft him? If I told you right now you can get a player, a young player, that's hitting 300 plus, that's hitting 40 homers and 30 stolen bases, where are you drafting him? He's a first rounder. You can get him in the 6th, 7th round. It's a tremendous value. It's a tremendous value. All right, guys, I've spent way too much time on this first tier because the second and third tier are equally important. And in all honesty, this is where you capitalize. And I'm going to go through this quickly. I'm kind of torn, man, because I kind of want to make this into a second show. I really want to talk about outfielders next week, though. So I kind of want to go through this. Can you give me another half hour? That's all I'm asking, because I want to go through this second and third tier. There's a ton of as valuable as that first tier is. And there's think about it. Think about this. And Malpaw makes this point perfectly. If you could get Bregman or Story, and then you turn around and you get Hyura and Bichette, you're ready to fucking leave. Because either way, Bregman or Story, either way, you're cornering the market at a position where it's not as prevalent at the middle in in home runs and RBIs and stolen bases. Man, that's where it's at, right? That's where it's at. But that doesn't mean this second 12 and this third 12. Hell, even the fourth 12. There's a tremendous amount of value here. So we're talking about ADPs from 40 to 110 here in this second 12. I'm going to read them off quickly, and then we'll talk about them as we need. Okay? Machado, 57.6. Merrifield, 47.2. LeMahieu, 57.3. K. Marte, 40.6. Semien, 83.6. Mondesi, 45. That's the first half of the second tier middle infielders. There's a ton of talent there, right? Would you not take any of those guys? I purposefully left all 6 of those guys out of this first tier because I feel like there's at least one red flag there on all of these guys. And I like all of them. I feel like they're a good value. But I don't feel like there's any red flags in that first tier. Machado, it's average. Merrifield, it's shit, he's 31 years old. They brought Nicky Lopez up. They really like him. Is he going to get squeezed out at some point? LeMahieu, homer and power, potential issues. He's 31 years old. I guess I can't argue against Marte a whole lot. He's only 26. 329. He's third at middle infielder in average. He's ninth in a homer at 32 homers. 97 runs is really close to your 100-run benchmark. 92 RBIs, seventh in the category in RBIs, and double-digit stolen bases. At 26 years old, maybe you should be up at 13. What do you guys think? Do you think Marte? So give me those 4. Kevin, I'm so glad you're in here. Thank you, brother. Machado, Merrifield, LeMahieu, Marte. How do you rank those 4? Because this is where the rubber meets the road, right? I guess it depends on what you did with the first 12. But these guys are all middle infield ones, right? And I don't know. I kind of like breaking it down like that. I kind of like breaking it down like corner infield, middle infield, outfield. Because then if you take a super stud shortstop early, then maybe you can wait a little because it's deep, right? You can wait a little bit for a second baseman or a middle infielder. You can, if you took Gleyber Torres and you're not getting a whole lot of stolen bases, you can kind of pick your poison and say, oh, well, maybe I want to get Mondesi in a minute. Maybe I want to get Merrifield. Maybe I want to get, it enables you to set up how you do things. So, again, to ask the question, Machado, Merrifield, LeMahieu, Marte. How do you guys rank those 4? I want to move on. This next guy, and I ranked him 5th amongst this second tier. I really feel like Marcus Semien is the poor man's Alex Bregman. So let's talk about numbers side by side. Kevin says Marte, Machado, Merrifield, LeMahieu. So Machado over Merrifield. I like the other 2. Machado over Merrifield. Why, Kevin? Give me your justification. Give me your reasoning there. Because I love Starling Marte. I've talked about him ad nauseum. I'm a Cubs fan. Y'all see my Pirates hat. But I think it's important to understand someone who is as devoted to loyalty as I am. I will never be anything other than a Mountaineer fan. I will never be anything other than a Steeler fan. For me to leave Pittsburgh For me to leave the Pirates and go to the Cubs, the lovable losers in 1987 when I left, should say something about the state of the organization of the Pittsburgh Pirates and how they've run the organization for the last 30 years. I'll get into that later. I'll get into that another day. I'm a terribly loyal person. But you see I'm wearing this fucking hat. Or maybe you don't. Maybe. I'm wearing this damn Pirates hat. And I'll tell you, I love what they're doing. I hate Bob Nutting. But I like Derek Sheldon. I like what they've brought in. And I'm all on board with what the Pirates are doing. Neither here nor there. Let's talk about these guys. Let's talk about Marcus Semien. Marcus Semien versus Alex Bregman. They're very similar. So, Bregman hit 296. Semien hit 285. Bregman hit 41 homers, first in the category. Semien hit 33, seventh. Bregman hit 112, third in the category. Drove in 112, excuse me. Semien drove in 92, seventh. Bregman stole 5 bases. Semien stole 10. Here's where it comes down to. And for me, this is one of 2 factors why I said this. Bregman drove in 122 runs. Good for second in the category. Pretty damn good. Semien scored 123 runs. First, he led middle infielders in runs scored. So if you look at those other categories, 285 to 296, 92 to 112, yes, Bregman has a few more. But when you look at stolen bases and runs, to me, in a position that's predicated off the stolen bases and runs, and the fact that he has double the stolen bases and comparable runs, leading the category, Marcus Semien all of a sudden has a lot of value. And here's the last fact of this. Here's the last factor here. You can get Marcus Semien in the 8th round. You can get Bregman in the 1st. I've never been a big Marcus Semien fan, but when you look at pure statistics, it's kind of a no-brainer for me that in the 8th round, this guy's available. 7th, 8th round, this guy's available. And he's giving you comparable statistics to a first rounder. I love this guy at this position. And I know once this all opens back up, if we ever have this season, we're going to draft a whole ton of games, right? And fact is, Marcus Semien at 83 is a no-brainer. I'll take him at 70. I'll take him at 60. If you're talking about Bregman in the 1st, Semien in the 6th is a fucking steal. Call me wrong. I'll take it. Malpal. How about Tim Anderson? Tim Anderson's in this next group. And, excuse me, where is I'm skipping. I'm sorry. I see it's 8 o'clock. I'm trying to get through these, but I do want to pay attention. I so Semien I have at 17. Muncie at 18. His ADP is 45. I have Semien at 83.6 above Muncie. Given his age, given his potential, I like Mondesi. I'm not saying that I don't. I take Mondesi 10 times over 10 I take Semien 10 times over 10 over Mondesi because of the experience, because of the fact that he's hitting leadoff for one of the best offenses in the game, because he's found a home, because he's excited. He's excitable in Oakland. I just really like Semien. I'm not saying I don't like Mondesi. I do. 263, 9 homers. Again, 43 homers, led the division. The thing I like about Mondesi is the fact that he doesn't hurt you elsewhere. He's going to give you homers. He's going to give you a decent average. If you're drafting a guy like D. Gordon, Malik Smith, one of those guys, they're giving you a big fat fucking donut hole in average. They're giving you a big fat donut hole in homers. Mondesi doesn't do that. Now, he might get injured. He's had some issue with that. But at 24 years old, I just had to bump him down a little bit. The next two guys we talked about last week, Muncie and Moustakas, second, third base eligible, lots of power. The average is maybe a little bit of a dip. Muncie, I'm interested in. I talked about him last week. Moustakas, I'm interested in. I talked about him ad nauseum. But again, the plethora of talent above them, I just see as being as more attractive. Okay. VR, this is to me getting close to being a pure stolen base guy. He did hit 24 homers. He did score 111 runs. He's in Miami this year, so that kind of changes things a bit. There's an adjustment period there, right? Escobar is an interesting case. 31 years old. He had 269, third in homers at 35 amongst the position, 94 runs, 118 RBIs. He led the position in RBIs. 31-year-old, I don't want to say journeyman because he had a couple other good years. But I don't know. There's a couple ways of thinking about the whole thing in Arizona. I don't have it in front of me. I'm not pretending to memorize it, but Arizona does have a good development coach. I think they had I read something. It was like 6 guys that had huge increases in the year prior. And it was because I can't remember the guy's name, but it was Christian Walker, Escobar, Kettle Marte. Anyway, there was 4 to 6 guys that showed this huge improvement last year. Carson Kelly was another one. And they credited this guy. So maybe it's sustainable. At 31 years old is a little bit late, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. That's why I have him a little bit lower, 116 ADP. Carlos Correa is an interesting case. He is my number 23 middle infielder, 101.8 ADP. This is a guy a couple years ago who really kind of everybody thought was the next big thing. It hasn't worked out. Last year, 279, 21 homers, 59 RBIs. He's battled back injuries. He's battled a whole bunch of other stuff. But okay, Mount Pao, to your point. My 24th infielder, my middle infielder, 111 ADP. And this just speaks to the depth here, right? Tim Anderson at 26 years old hit 335 last year. His swing and strike rate kind of speaks to a little bit of negative regression there, but he does have that speed power combo. And the fact that, okay, so he hit 335 last year. It was like a 26.9 swing and miss rate. Um, I'm not quoting that from my notes. It's just something I saw and kind of retained. Um, Speaks to negative regression with his average. 335 might be a touch high for him, but even if he hits 300, he gives you 25 runs, or excuse me, homers and 25 stolen bases. This is a tremendous value. You're talking about a top 3, 4 pick, third or fourth round pick. So again, at ADP 111, I feel like Tim Anderson is a tremendous value. And maybe if you miss out on Hyra or Bichette, Tim Anderson is someone you take a chance on a little bit, a couple rounds later. Again, it's all about strategy. I wouldn't suggest going after Hyra, Bichette, and Anderson, although I wouldn't suggest against it. And you're absolutely right, Kevin. If healthy, Correa would be a top 5 player. It's all about those back spasms and all that stuff. He's shown glimpses. And that's the tough part. When you get to the second and third tier, these guys really have a ton of potential still, right? So, again, we're at 806. I want to go quickly through these third, fourth tier. I don't want to take you guys too much over because, well, hell, I got to break the seal. I got to eat dinner and I got to work tomorrow. So, Chaps Fantasy Chat is brought to you on the Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports Network at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. Also brought to you on Zoom. So, you guys see me interacting or hear me interacting with guys. It's via the chat room, which you can find at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. You go in there, you can sign in, you can go in as an alias, however you want to do it. Go and ask your questions, interact with the group. You got a whole bunch of great people in here with you, supporting you as you're doing this. Personally, right now, I see I got Big Al on the prowl. I got Douglas Boyle. Thanks for joining me. I got Big George Hubschman, Malpow, Kevin, Royals 29, Boom, Taco. Thank you guys for your support. Really appreciate you guys hanging in there with me, hanging on, and get my take on this, because really this is my hour and a half, whatever you want to call it, where I get to share my thoughts and my opinions on all this stuff, because it does vary from podcaster to podcaster. But the important thing is the thinking behind it and why you value certain things, right? Which brings me into this third tier. So, in essence, real world situation, you're talking about, you got your shortstop, you got your second baseman, you're looking for your middle infielder. You're now looking from this third 12 of guys, which, trust me, there's still a shitload of talent here that you can draw from, right? And it's not hurting you in your draft status. You're talking about ADP of 85 to 224 with this third group of 12 middle infielders, which, again, to me, brings this whole it's almost like trade bait. You take your chances on guys you really think are going to hit, and then use them as a chip later to get some. Maybe you need pitching, maybe you need stolen bases, maybe you need power. Use them as a chip later on, because you're going to draft the 25 through 48. There is a ton of good players here. It's all about tiering them properly. So I want to talk about, again, I want to go through this quickly. I'm going to give you another 10 minutes. Jorge Polanco, 148 ADP. He had an average of 295, 22 homers, 107 runs, 79 RBIs and 4 stolen bases. He's just 26 years old. He's playing probably the best offensive baseball. Statistically, he was the best offensive baseball last year. He and the Yankees. But again, at 26 years old, he's hitting at the top of that lineup. He's not going to steal bases. That's the drawback from Jorge Polanco. But he has a plus 300 skill sets, 20 plus homers, and the runs hitting at the top of that lineup. He's going to score a bunch of runs. Again, at 148.4, I feel like he is someone that you kind of fill in your depth with. And with purpose. He's an average guy. He's not going to steal bases. Number 26, the second guy, Danny Santana. On the flip side of that, he's a stolen base person. The thing I like about Santana is he's versatile. He can play all over the field. First, second in the outfield, which also means middle and corner, right? He stole 21 bases last year. He had 283 with 28 homers. Look, this guy's a late bloomer. He's 29 years old. His ADP is 133.8, so you're talking about around a 14th round pick, 13th, 14th round pick. You could do a hell of a lot worse than a guy you could play in really 5 positions with that power speed combo. You're taking a bit of a gamble on the fact that he doesn't replicate it, but fact is although people want to call him a one-hit wonder, yes, he didn't hit for that speed and power in the same year. He showed a sample size of success in Minnesota prior to him to come to Texas. So I'm all in on Danny Santana, and that's why I have him high on this list. I want to run down through this. McNeil, 85. Seager, 137. Biggio, 126. Edmund, 137. Andrews, 153. Newman, 213. Wong, 224. Rosario, 174. DeJong, 191. And McMahon, 196. I think it's interesting, and that's how I have them rated. Because when you look at these guys, there are clear line. Tommy Edmonds, some of the job there's a lot of upside with this next 10 guys, right? McNeil, average. Seager, hell, he was a first-round pick a couple years back before he had his whole shoulder thing, right? 137 ADP. I'll take a chance on him. Biggio, power speed combo, 126. Edmund, average speed combo, 137. Andrus, we talked about earlier, 31 stolen bases last year. I love Elvis Andrus, and at 153, I think he's a tremendous value. Kevin Newman at 213, a 308 average, 12 homers and 16 stolen bases. Colton Wong, 224, 24 stolen bases. You guys are getting my point here, right? You can cherry pick what you need at this position. You can't do that at corner. You really can't do that in the outfield. If you need stolen bases, go pick up Colton Wong. If you need average, go pick up McNeil or Edmund or Newman. You can get these guys cheaply. Rosario, 174. DeJong, 191. McMahon, 196. A lot of potential with all three of these players. McMahon offers you position versatility. Rosario and DeJong offer you just being really good. I mean, honestly, both of those guys. DeJong for his power, Rosario for his all-around ability. I want to talk quickly through this. I'm going to give you guys, again, another 5 minutes. But this next 12, to me, I just want to make mention because it's important when you're doing your list. These guys have a lot to offer. And their ADP goes from 156 to 336. So there's a big bucket here that we're casting our net on. But these are, for the most part, all names you'd recognize. Number 37, Didi Gregorius, ADP 202. He hit 238 last year with 16 homers, 61 RBIs. He's playing in Philadelphia. He's 30 years old. I love Didi Gregorius this year. He's a proven player. He's been a bit inconsistent. He's had a few injuries, but when he's been healthy, he's been an out of the park type of player. His teammate, Gene Segura. George, I like that. Gene Segura is actually probably going to play third base. His ADP is 200. He brings a completely different skill set than Didi Gregorius does. He had 280 last year. 12 homers, 79 runs, 60 RBIs, and 10 stolen bases. This is a guy who offers speed. And even as an advanced age, if you're looking for a guy who can get you 20 stolen bases and you want to take a chance, Gene Segura is your guy. He's cheap. He's affordable. And that shortstop third base eligibility to me is one that is underrated. So I really like Segura here. Brandon Lau at 194. He's just 25 years old. Guys, y'all forget he was an all-star last year. He had 270 with 17 homers and 5 stolen bases. He's probably going to be multi-position eligible, second base, left field, maybe third base. But you guys forget he signed a major league contract before the season last year, so Tampa Bay really likes him. They're going to get him in the game. Starlin Castro. My boy Arnie's talked about him a lot. Mount Powell, even if the Philly Stadium does give up cheap homers, even so, that's a positive for these two guys, right? For Gregorius and Segura. I mean, we both know Gregorius is good. He has 30 homer potential. And Segura might not have 30 homer potential, but if he's playing in a positive ballpark, 12 homers could turn into 30 pretty quick. I'm not saying it's probable, but I'm saying 25 wouldn't surprise me. Again, in a vacuum. I feel like I always got to clarify that. So Lau, number 39. Castro's interesting. He's hitting third in the Nationals lineup. He's playing predominantly at third base, but he's going to carry that second base, third base eligibility, which is unique. You don't see second base, third base very much. Max Muncy's the only other guy above him, I think, that has that. 270 last year, 22 homers, 86 RBIs for the freaking Marlins, who weren't good. You got to think this goes up for the reigning national champions into the middle of the lineup. Rugi Odor, I like 227. The 30 homers and 93 RBIs are what's enticing there. Again, he's just 26 years old. We're talking about middle infielder number 41. It's not like we're making a big investment here. Jonathan Scope, 256. 23 homers last year in a part-time role. He's just 28 years old. Luis Arias, I actually moved down here a little bit from last week because outside of average, he doesn't give you much. Scope is 336. Arias is 260. I'll take Scope 100 times out of 100 because of value. Gavin Lux, 156. 240. He could be the rookie of the year. He's only 22 years old. But he needs the opportunity. Chavez, Happ, Solak, Madrigal. Those are the last 4. What do you guys think? Well, Mount Powell, it isn't ideal. What is ideal about it, though? Everyday playing time. Detroit isn't a terribly pitcher-friendly park. I think Scope's a Fairly good sleeper here at 336. You can get him for free. Maybe I put him above Odor. I don't put him above Castro. But I'll tell you right now, as far as value and where they're being drafted, Scope had part-time playing. Last year, he had 23 homers. Odor played every day and hit 50 points less. It's the average versus stolen bases. Odor gave you 11. Scope gave you 1. It's interesting. I don't know. It's splitting hairs. But when you're talking about, again, we want to look at this holistically. When you're talking about filling out your roster to the middle infield perspective, you still got a shitload of talent here that you're drawing from. Gregorius, Segura, Lau, Castro, Odor, Shope, Araz, Lux, Michael Chavis, Ian Happ, Nick Solak, Nick Madrigal, Shed Long. There's people here to draw from. I left out really talented players. There's really good depth here. 821. Chaps Fantasy Chat, Tuesday nights at 7 on the Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports Network at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. I appreciate y'all hanging with me. Had a great chat room tonight. Malpal, George, Kevin. Lenny, Andrea. I appreciate everyone that came with me. John Solly, Guess Kai. I appreciate everyone that spent this hour and a half with me. I've worked hard on this. I hope it shows. Next week, I really want you guys to tune in. I'm going to talk some about our favorite outfielder, our favorite current player, our consensus number 1 pick for the last 4 years. I'm going to talk some about him. Outfield is even deeper than this middle infield position. I'm going to talk about strategy and how you want to draft these guys to maximize what you're pulling from here. Because just like in the middle infielder where you have a legit 49 players that I just talked about, I would draft any one of those players. Probably almost double that for the outfield, right? So join me next week. Chappy, Chaps Fantasy Chat, Tuesday nights at 7. Lenny Melnick, FantasySports.com. Thanks to all my friends for supporting me. Love you guys. See you next Tuesday. Bye.